Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. The title is The Simplicity of Complex Psychological Games, and it came to my attention last night that, I don't know, I was talking to someone about this, where in some sense the nature of the games of the psyche, that we are a body and we are a mind, and the body's games are mobility, but the mind's games are different than just being mobile. The mind's game have to do with being, with ontology, with the study of becoming, how things are becoming what they are, you know? We can say that if people have a comfort, they can express more, in the presence of one another. That many of us, we require trust. That means when you look at children, you see the child has way more comfort to express in front of the parents than in front of strangers. How the child psychology is. So I thought about this. I thought about this that if the mind was playing games, what kind of game is it playing? What is it trying to do? Now, we have different suggestions from different people in history. As if it is true, you can see different philosophers, different psychologists, different scientists, different people on this planet. But really what it is, it's human behavior. And human behavior is dependent on variables. That means when any game the person plays, there's variables in it. There is an outcome. There are laws, regulations. There's a referee. Now, in human existence, there was no referee until certain people in the 6th century were like, yeah, there's an invisible referee everywhere. But now after Friedrich Nietzsche declared that God is dead and man killed him as a warning to the future generations, that the invisible referee is gone, man became his own referee. Now people are acting like their own gods. That means the only force that it can stop a person now is themselves, more than others, more than any other idea outside. There has been times, there's moments where a person gets angry, a person is filled with some sort of emotion of rage, and in that moment, if there are those people who care about the outcome of that being, they will shout. They will shout, remember yourself. And the angry person in the middle of that chaos, in the middle of that rage, in the middle of that game, suddenly realizes that they are the God that they can listen to. It's hilarious. From a religious narrative, God made man. From a non-religious narrative, man made God. And in both situations, man is, in some sense, engaging an archetype of authority. That is the authority outside of the self. Is the authority inside the self? Is the authority the whole moment? Or does the moment not have authority? And then we see the different games that this world can play. People do play games because their inner realms are different. Sometimes I've spoken to someone who it has been very difficult to communicate to because that person has been in their own world, And when there's two people who are different, let's say person A and person B, person A has person A's inner realm. Person B has person B's inner realm. And when person A and B speak, for example, based on who speaks first, there is AB and BA, the line AB and BA drawn. So what does that mean? That means there is no such game aside from a co-creative game. The games we play outside include the world's effort involvement in the game and also the self's involvement in the game. But what it also means is that because the psychology is multidimensional, because psychologists have spoken about something known as, for example, the fragmented psyche, you see, when you wonder about the nature of that idea, you wonder about what is the classification of intelligence to intelligence itself. This world is remarkable. Because in it you will find people who will never understand you. You will find people who have understood you before you were born. It's a remarkable system, and the game is the way we play it. That means, I will tell you, when I was young, I remember it was like the first PlayStation was out when I was really young, and there was this hilarious game called Pepsi Man. And the game was so ridiculous. It was just this dude running shaped like a Pepsi can, and he had to get Pepsi cans to become like get energy and lives or whatever, right? And so I remember, like, there was that game. There was this game called Ballers for PlayStation 2 that had come out, FIFA, of course. And when I would play these games when I was young, they would occupy the moment. They would fill up the activities of the day. And when I looked at it when I was young, of course, my parents were like, don't play so many games, so I would play outside. But there was something about it that later on you realize life is a game. And it's literally like when you wake up, your existence is a container, and how you live is filling it up for the day. You know, for example, me personally, it's come to a point where I feel like if I don't give a talk a day, I feel like I haven't used what I am throughout the day. Do you know? And the thing is, everything is really like a game. Even you can say the evolutionary urge to reproduce was a game. When you look at animal psychology, when you look at how birds, for example, mate, you see the birds show off their feathers. The bird's like, look at this. Da-da! So even animals are playing games that they're not conscious of. For me, the body is a game engine. It's an engine that projects various modes of the character. Now, these psychological games, I mean, here's the strange thing about modern psychology. The word psyche comes from the spirit. Its derivation leads to a term that goes towards the idea of the soul and the spirit, but psychology doesn't see it. You know, because the clouds have blocked the clear sky. Because the mind has seen objects before subjects first. When you really wonder how a subject is there, that's when your life opens up to wondering about if the dimensions are limited to how you thought they were. When you look at evolution, surviving in the fittest way, that's a game. When you look at everything I see in life is a game. And you can say when human beings somehow, this is where love comes in. Where in the middle of this performance, this theatrical game, there is something else noticed. That the way life is simply designed, you don't have to do anything about it. That oftentimes the psychological games is the person wanting a moment that is not there yet. That's what I've realized, you know? I'll be honest, like, everything has a shadow and a light. That means anything that has a shadow, there's a light hitting it. Any person who is acting evil, cruel, wicked, vicious, and they feel justified, the only reason you know what's wicked is because you know what's good. And if you really did know what's good, you would observe duality. You would see this life is like chemicals alongside epigenetical linguistic influences directing the person. That means right now, you know, I want everybody to also, at the end of my talk, slow hand clap for all the periodic table of elements that are being me. Do you know? The iron percentage in my body. You know, sometimes when I give a talk and I'm like, is this my lunch talking? You know, like the person eats something, you know, and their energetic level changes. That's the thing, it's weird. This life is very strange, that oftentimes it welcomes behavior, yet it can't accept behavior. And the reason is because we're all in our inner realms. Very few people, I feel, they can actually love what's going on, and because the only way you can love something is if you see something more than yourself. You know, so I'm there. Usually in history, the algorithm is the lover sees the other lover. It's like, oh my god, you know, she's so beautiful. The guy's just taken, you know. But there's a sort of thing where it's like in the middle of a battlefield, you know, in the middle of an existential journey, experiences non-resistantly communicate. That is the elegance of the mind. That it is not here just to see how it is separate from things. For what else can love be in a broken world that needs fixing? It's the eyes of man. You know, the mind is designed to endlessly generate games. You know, I look at it. I look at even you look at nature. You know, I was looking at a bird on a branch, guys. Like I think it was like two talks, maybe like yesterday or the day before. While midway I was giving a talk, I just pressed it on pause and I was looking at like this red robin, this red bird on a branch. In Canada, you have squirrels, red robins. Sometimes you see a blue jay. And you know what I discovered about the bird psychology? The bird is not processing. The bird is not like, what am I going to do tomorrow? The bird is just taking a step. Animals make a move, then they scan. They make a move, then they scan. They make a move, then they scan. Do you know? I could tell you animals, like you can take a bird's head motions and use that as a technological scanner. Do you know? That means if I wanted to build a camera, I would build it in accordance to how a bird's head is moving. Because if you look at it, it's so fascinating. They're super fast creatures, birds, and when they want to scan their environment, it's instant. It's like a nano movement in their whole turn in less than a second has seen the other side. You know, they're very precise instruments. For me, birds are like the first pilots, you know. They are the inspiration of the Wright brothers, you know. They are what the Wright brothers saw that they wanted to become. So honestly, if the Wright brothers, they were kids and somebody asked them, what do you want to be, kids, when you grow up? They were like, birds! And they're like, okay, calm down, kids, calm down. You can't be birds, you know, you're people. Little did they know, the Wright brothers did become birds. And then they allowed that bird to be accessible to everyone. And that is how civilization advances. When you realize your life journey is your game. You know, sometimes you might have people who are, the Buddha says, you're born alone, you die alone. Companionship is a luxury. Do you know? That means a person should see another mind in a world so big around them as a sort of. Do you know what it is? I mean, it's like people are priceless. Do you know? But everything that people define, identify with can be priced. But the human is priceless. A new moment, a new DNA. People forget. Do you know? This was something I realized that it's an issue with the immigration psychology of people to countries. Do you know? I realized something scary, you know, about immigration. And it's something where I haven't made up my mind yet. I don't know enough, I feel, at the moment, even though I have an experience of immigration, you know. But I could tell you, and being raised from it, like imagine you're someone born in America, and then they take you from America and throw you in Japan at a young age. Do you know? And so you're living in Japan, and there's an integration process of how your mind has accepted meaning through one cultural framework, and then you come to a different environment, and then it's a different cultural framework, right? So one thing I have noticed, which I am not too happy about, right, is the issue of ideology in immigration. And I don't know why I'm talking about this, but I feel maybe there's something to it. So I hope everybody has heard that quote from Aristotle. It's the sign of an educated mind to entertain an idea without accepting it. You know, that means I'm not throwing bones for the vicious by saying what I'm saying here. I'm just trying to communicate that what I have noticed personally is that the brain has different phases of cultural integration, and then it has application. So you learn how to do something, then you do it. Okay. Now, what's going on is something strange. I see so many people just from different cultures. Being living in Canada, you see this, right? You see so many different families from different cultures um, in a new culture. You know, in a culture that, regardless of how much they act like it's back home, they're still somewhere new. Now, there's different kinds. There's people who, they, for example, they're political refugees in one country, and the country welcomes them, right? And they're like, they find a sort of joy and affinity for the freedom of a country. Like, I'll tell you something from someone who came from Iran to Canada. Holy shit. Holy shit, some countries, they don't even have ideological freedom. It's scary. And there's war going on. And that's even more scary. It's fools fighting fools, not realizing heaven was on earth before earth could go to heaven. So anyways, guys, back to this idea. What it is literally one person from one cultural program coming to another country. And when they come to another country, it's there's something uh, there's sorry guys, the sound distracted me. This is what I'm trying to say. There's an issue of cultural integration because culture is like an alphabet. It's like somebody learns one language their whole life, then they go to somewhere else where they have to speak a different language. They can't ignore the language they have learned. At the same time, they can't ignore the language of their environment. So what tends to be happening in Canada is that there's a percentage of, I can say, immigration, where in that percentage of immigration, it's something like a lot of people are living as if they're living back in the country they left. Do you know? It's as if the person spends their whole time coming to a new country, but they're living as if it didn't matter they came into a new country. They're living as if they were in the old country. Now, here's the issue. It's about cultural relatability and the ethical nature. That means, what do you do when you, just like the School of Athens, what happens when a bunch of philosophers with different worldviews from different parts of the world come to the School of Athens? You know, these philosophers would come there not trying to be the same, but trying to be, all of them were philosophers. Do you see what I mean? That means right now we have to, the way we have what's going on with the planet in regards to nationalism, honestly, we have colored the face of the world, we have built walls, and we think we know what we're doing. I am just saying that this life is, uh, it's not about just a physical participation in the event. It is about generating the efficiency that can help the endurance of the collective system. That's it. That means for me, I don't care, honestly, I'll be honest. I don't care you as a person, what ideas you choose. In this life, it's like a buffet. You can choose whatever you want, whatever ideology, whatever belief. But what is important, that the person remembers that we are human beings before we are the colors of any thought. Before we are the shapes of our inner eyes, we are our real eyes. Do you know? So it's, the issue is, like, this is why I was suggesting with, like, my, you can search in my other talks, just search Civilization 2.0. It's this whole model I've had where I'm like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that the earth is like this endless resource station, but because of the misallocation, of the selfishness of color, The selfishness of us making flags. You see, I have the issue with nationalism is that it needs to become, all nations need to become sub-nations of humanity. That means we should have only one nation called the human nation. Human nation. Why don't we just call it human nation? Like literally the word, the N for the word human and the N for nation could be the what am I saying? Same. All right, here. The human nation. All right, guys? The human nation. Imagine we develop. Just think about it, guys. Think about it if, in my vision of civilization 2.0, sky cities becomes an important technology. 600 years from now, potentially, if certain great transformations occur, that all human infrastructure, all human activity on the planet lifts up into the orbit. Okay, as it lifts up into the orbit, what happens is that people will realize right now it's like a buffet. So what does that mean? Imagine you are a citizen, you've paid for a restaurant, okay? You've gone into this restaurant, now it's an all-you-can-eat buffet. You go to one buffet, you're about to get some vegetables, suddenly you see somebody is covering the buffet and they're like, sorry man, you got to be a citizen of the vegetable kingdom, the vegetable nation, in order for you to eat these vegetables. And then you're like, okay, so I can't eat the vegetables. Then you go to try to eat, let's say, the chicken, and then you see somebody from the chicken nation, saying like, no, you can't. Somebody covering the buffet there, it's like, you got to become a citizen. And the issue is we have become selfish in our national identity as human beings, not realizing that we are human before we are the names we put on our face. You know? Nature doesn't have a mind. This is why savageness is authorized for it. This is why when you see a violent human being, it's like, shit, I didn't know an animal escaped from the zoo. That's what violence is. You see someone who's violent, you're seeing someone who doesn't understand why their brain evolved for 4 billion years. They don't understand the power of dialogue. They don't understand that the mind is a gift. A multidimensional gift, and if the person just drinks the savageness of one dimension, I am telling you, this world is not meant to be broken. It is meant to be an opportunity to build something. So that's the thing. If we were all living in the sky, the earth would be an all-you-can-eat buffet where nobody's holding the resources. And my vision with Civilization 2.0 is it's pretty much Mr. Within's strategy to indefinitely bypass extinction. We go phase 1. We build sky cities, we're living in the sky. Phase 2, we heavenize the earth. While we're living in the sky, we make the earth so botanically excellent that it will appear as if it is uninhabited by humans. It would be our backup. While Earth is built and we're in the sky cities, we will think of two roads. Either we will move to phase 3, which is the interstellar civilization where there's a decision, or we can go to be advanced beyond the language threshold. There is no such thing as poor people when everybody is poor when it comes to time. Time doesn't care if how big your wallet is. Time doesn't care what you liked or disliked. The thing about time is like it's this commander or general on a battlefield shouting at the whole cosmos, go forth! And everybody, everything in manifestation is waking up and going forth. It's like the ultimate command. Time is the instruction of humanity. It is revelation time. that we have revealed it to ourselves, that we cannot be lost in the past, that we cannot be oblivious in the present, that there is a future. Holy shit, after we come to the here and now, the only thing left is the future. So that's the issue. We have dishonored the global human being, the universal human archetype, by fragmenting it with colors, shapes, behaviors. So what? We are just inefficient personalities in the void because the collective hasn't dared change its shirt. You know? Oh man, I'm becoming too. Oh, passion, fly away for now. Now is time for the blueprint. You know, first you strategize, then you dance. All right, guys, give me a second. I gotta let these oceans evaporate underneath my face. You know. Let me see. I want to go into a Bhagavad Gita quote tunnel. The Bhagavad Gita is technically to the Hindu community, it is scripture. It is a very I treat the Bhagavad Gita as a sacred text because when you realize who the author of it was, the author of it is technically a human that is not human. So the Bhagavad Gita was written by Rishi Vyasa. Rishi Vyasa was this next level mystic. At the same time, I would tell you he was one of the most advanced pilots. He was like in my inner realms. I think Marshall McLuhan, even though he's not with us, but I think Marshall McLuhan, maybe even Terrence. I don't know if Terrence would agree, but like it's like I feel Rishi Vyasa. He was the first human being in the history of the human species to be seen as the incarnation of God in language. In language, as if language is its own dimension, and just like how in Christian context Christ is seen as God on earth, that means even though Christ is the Son of God, in the Christian mentality, Christ is God. But for example, in the Islamic theological angle, Christ is a prophet, but Christ is not God. God is like this inconceivability. Yet people are fighting for it. It's like God is inconceivable, yet wars are starting over it. You know. So anyways, what I'm trying to say is that. Rishi Vyasa was the incarnation of God and language. He was pretty much the spirit of rhetoric for his time. You know, the ancient Greeks, they were the incarnate. In my books, the people in the school of Athens, they were the incarnation of God and language, for that time. Every generation has its I would call its it has its language movers, every generation. Just historic events. Victor Hugo, this European writer, he had an excellent uh, quote. He said, "Nothing is more powerful than an idea in which its time has come." And when you look at history, it was natural events, then after some point, language began. You know, even though war is messed up, but from one perspective, it was like an advancement because it was, for the first time, epigenetical reasons outside of the conscious moment. You know, it was like language was starting to move the gears of the mind more and more. You know, now language has moved the gears of our mind so much that when a child is born, they can very instantly attain a sophisticated use of language. But the issue is civilization is becoming super advanced, but it's not realizing it's separate from its thoughts. So it's lacking novelty. That means it's like we have to befriend that, we have to make novelty, the spirit of novelty, our ally, then run into the battlefield. You run into the battlefield alone, you don't know what you're doing. Do you know? This is the whole point of nature, that the yogis would in some sense remember their divinity, then they would live on earth. But most people are on earth trying to get rid of their earthliness to find their divinity, which is the biggest flaw, as if they have never understood that nature couldn't have made a mistake. You are the only person who have on this planet has probably thought you're not able or enlightened. You know, because the Buddha has this notion that when it's a non-dual state, there is no judge or judgment. When there is no judge or judgment, how is there imperfection? How is there perfection? So anyways, back to Rishi Vyasa. Rishi Vyasa, he wrote these 18 books called the Puranas, and he wrote them on leaves. Back in the day, during a time when people were like, bro, you're writing books on leaves? People don't even know how to read yet, man. You know? And but Rishi Vyasa, this pilot of his inner realms, he went forth. And so after writing these 18 books with enlightening metaphoric value to the social cultural system, what Rishi Vyasa does is that he is not content. He feels his soul is incomplete, even though his mind has completed not the masterpiece, but has completed his great work. That means there's a part of the human nature that regardless of how much you sit down and process it, it's a collective service. Look at how many people living for their families. Now look at it. Now imagine all those people living for their families live for their human family. A family, that language that could not tear up, could not render an enemy. Do you know? Because friends and you can tell. I could tell you, in this world there is real enemies, artificial enemies. There's real friends, artificial friends. And I would say our artificial friends are more like comrades on the battlefield, apprentices. You know. But true friends are those who have seen the vulnerability of your soul, or you have allowed your armor to be a bit less loose, fixed around them. Do you know? This is why the biggest issue with relationships is trust. And the biggest issue with trust is that people are not in the same world. Do you know? That means I often think, like, in a relationship where one partner cheats, what can that relationship do? You know, on one level, it's as if there is a devaluing, because usually things continue if there is an equality. When that equality is broken, then it's destructive. You know, that means it's like a relationship. Literally, I want you to imagine like a cartoon Care Bear hugging like a lovely Care Bear cartoon or mascot thing. And now I want you to imagine like a grizzly bear. So in a relationship, how you behave, how much you care for the other living being in front of your eyes that has endured so far. Sometimes it's like being rude to a person is strangely being rude to their lineage. That means there was a time I remember I got angry. I'm like, look, that person was such a piece of shit, you know? And then I was like, who am I calling a piece of shit? A person who their ancestors did all the right moves to get them to be alive in 2020. And I'm calling that person a piece of shit, not realizing how hard their ancestors have been working. You know, I'm telling you, sometimes it's easier, it's more fun to see your own foolishness rather than the foolishness of others. You know? Because really, Galileo even says this, you can never teach anyone anything. So all those people trying to be teachers are fools, in my mind. You cannot teach anyone anything. You can only make them realize it within yourself. I'm like, this is not this world. It may seem like a playground of a schoolyard when you're young, but it is not a playground. It is a battlefield. It is Normandy. But it's Normandy for a multidimensional situation where eyes are opening on this earth, and just like food, they're consuming environmental experiences and being sculpted. And after Rishi Vedvyasa wrote those 18 Puranas, he was left in a place where that incompleteness was like, all right, we finished the Rubik's Cube, but why is the moment still incomplete? And an angel comes to Rishi Vyasa in that moment. You know, that means the divine began to teach him. Do you know? And an angel came to Rishi Vyasa and said, Rishi Vyasa, until you write about your love for the truth, that means you do not get afraid of your real eyes, and you be. You be now where it is the final hour. The now is the only hour. Like a lightning strike, as if the hammer of the gods was thrown into the mind of a man. Do you know? Rishi Vyasa releases his ultimate inner realm in the outer realms. And you can say sometimes these books, these ancient books, they are not books. They are moments where man saw beyond man, and language was the only glow of the lighthouse from the distance of the multidimensional landscape. Rishi Vyasa writes the Srimad Bhagavatam. He writes the dialogue between an archer, Arjuna, this divine archer, this next level unparalleled to his skill archer, and God visits this archer. Seldom is this said, but the divine visits the skillful often. And so what Rishi Vyasa writes, this dialogue between God and man, Krishna, comes and talks to Arjuna, this archer. I wanted to read some passages from that, pretty much for you, as a quote tunnel segment of the show. All right, guys, time to go into this quote tunnel. So in the Bhagavad Gita, these are just, this person has made a website of different quotes from it. Quotes by Krishna on himself. Pretty much in the book, God is explaining to Arjuna his true nature. So the Bhagavad Gita is that rare book where God is not just giving instructions, God is also explaining the instructions, you know? Like, I'm not joking. Literally in the book, in the Bhagavad Gita, God is explaining. God is explaining himself to man. Like, it's hilarious. So it begins. Krishna says in the Gita, it says, Bhagavad Gita, however men try to reach me, I return their love with my love. Whatever path they may travel, it leads to me in the end. This is the ultimate intelligence of the universe, technically speaking. I am the beginning, middle, and end of creation. I am death, which overcomes all, and the source of all being still to be born. Just remember that I am, and that I support the entire cosmos with only a fragment of my being. I am time, the destroyer of all. I have come to consume the world. I am heat. I give and withhold the rain. I am immortality, and I am death. I am what is and what is not. My true being is unborn and changeless. I am the Lord who dwells in every creature. Through the power of my own Maya, I manifest myself in affinite form. You and I have passed through many births, Arjuna. You have forgotten, but I remember them all. And guys, I'm going to comment on this, holy shit, because that's an archetype. Like, I shouldn't say excuse my language, but this point is so important. God is literally telling the creation, you know, there's more to this when you read the actual full passage, but God is telling Arjuna that it's like pretty much an oversoul and an individual soul taking turns in lifetimes. That means today we're the creation of God. Tomorrow, who knows? You know? But in the Bhagavad Gita, it says, the brightness of the sun, which lights up the world, the brightness of the moon and the fire, these are my glory. The divine illusion of mine, M-I-N-E, mine, caused by the qualities, is hard to pierce. They who come to me, they cross over this illusion as if never it was about you learning a secret teaching. It was about going into a communication with the life of your world, dear listeners. I am telling you, the wisdom is not language. It's not Willy Wonka golden ticket like. It's you know, it's honestly, you are alive and you're living, and there could be a potential that your universal sector is alive and it's living. And so if there is a possibility that you can communicate with the mind of your universal sector, pretty much it's like speaking to someone, speaking to the manager, rather than dwelling in the building randomly trying to figure out. Do you know, that's kind of what it is? Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita is saying, hey, human beings, there's something alive here, intelligent as everything, do you know, and you can speak to this manager if you want manager tips or if you have a problem. Do you know? Because what happens in the archetype of the religious mindset, the individual's archetype, they're like, what is this, God? Help me out. Do you know? So what is that? It's like as if the manager of the universal sector, do you know, is literally in the Bhagavad Gita saying, if there's any problems, let me know. You know? I'm telling you, the divine has excellent customer service. Of course, back to the sacred glow of the Gita. Whatever dharma declines and the purpose of life is whenever dharma declines and the purpose of life is forgotten, I manifest myself on earth. I am born in every age to protect the good, to destroy evil, and to reestablish dharma. Dharma, you can see it as divine balance or divine abidance, you know, harmonious abidance. In the Gita it says that one is dear to me, who runs not after the pleasant or away from the painful, grieves not, lusts not, but lets things come and go as they happen. That means you have reached a point where, imagine you had infinite desires and you just got like all your infinite desires. You'd be like, okay, how long can I be an animal that just choose like my desires, you know? Like, you're gonna see after a point, just constantly filling up your mouth with the food of what you expect, it just gets boring after a while. You know, so here Krishna is saying the individual being who realizes that it's not a big deal if the good and bad are like weather of the moment, right? Morality should become so efficient that we don't have good and bad, because the bad realizes its inefficiency and the good realizes its efficiency. So we transcend from the two side of the coin struggle of morality, you know. The endless spinning coin. Are we good? Are we evil? Are we good? Are we evil? Somebody's like, oh my God, stop this. You know? And hence why the Buddha sat down in pure silence. Anyways, in the Gita it says there are three gates to this self-destructive hell: lust, anger, and greed. Renounce these three, as if like a universal commander is shouting to a human being. Lust, anger, greed, really, bro? Now? So that's the thing. It's like you renounce inferior, inefficient techniques, your technique becomes more masterful. You stop doing that what doesn't work, more things work for you. Not work for you like in an egotistical way. Things function better for your moment, you know? In the Gita it says pleasure from the senses seems like nectar at first, but it is bitter poison. It is bitter as poison in the end. That means this lust, anger, greed combo, like the issue with these is that's the thing about desire. If you start a relationship based on the desire you have for a person, it is a dead relationship, because the beginning of the desire, it's new, things are new, it's fresh, oh yeah, you know, you're loving it. But then after a while, if you don't really care, if you don't have more dimensions in your relationship, then it's like two objects in a you know, in a space wondering what are we doing here, you know what I mean? So there has to be co-creation and care. Without co-creation and care, I don't believe a relationship ever existed. So co-creation is all about freedom of mind before imposition of the laws of how the body feels. That which seems, I read that. In the Gita it says, those who cannot renounce attachment to the results of their work are far from the path. That means little do we know that we have to work on this planet without being a self, but rather being just a pleasant moment of experience. You see, the karma never touched a part of you. There's three classifications to the self. There's the individual self, which holds within itself an individual memory. Then there is the universal self, which holds within it universal memory. When you get a universal memory, you're not a person. It transcends human archetype. It transcends human archetype, I'm telling you. There's ways we can just sit in the moment and be as if we before we have done anything of a human relationship, we are actually moment. We are the moment before the idea of the human in the moment, you know? Actions do not cling to me, because I am not attached to their results. Those who understand this and practice it live in freedom. And honestly, when you look at the archetype of like the cool person in Western society, it has unfortunately summed down to the person who doesn't give a shit. You know, so that means that it's like carelessness may seem cool because we feel like the person's not attached. It's not bogged um, by something, you know, bogged down by something. The person is not stuck. Do you know? So that's the thing. We want to be free spirits, but we're bodies with obligations of mindhood. So Krishna, literally God in this book is saying, yo Archer, you know, renounce your result and you are close. You have found the Tao. Do you know? But here's the thing, many people don't realize, what if we can build an advanced civilization without being attached to the result? What if we somehow non-dually built the most advanced dualism? What if we recognize that non-duality gives us the best scope of dualism? I feel that mystics are actually geniuses. Why? Because they observe the self and they don't attach to a certain type of self, so their mind gets archetypal freedom. So the person has such archetypal freedom after observing themselves more than a thought that you can look at a leaf, close your eyes, and envision yourself being that leaf. The mind's limits break because the limitless has been attempted. Calmness, gentleness, silence. Silence. Self-restraint and purity. These are the disciplines of the mind. That means if you want to discipline your mind, whoever you are, practice these somehow. Practice calmness, become observant. Notice when others are agitated and when you are not. Notice when others are intense and you are gentle. Notice when others are loud and you are silent. Notice when you have self-restraint and others don't. And notice when you abide by your simplicity, which is your purity, when others are impure. And vice versa. Become an advanced communicator by finding elevations. When I use the term pilot, when I say to people, we're not at a time in life where we need to like believe things. Yeah, good for you, you believe something, you know, or good for you, you disbelieve something. It's all about finding novelty. Every business that is surviving so far, they're doing it because they have a research section. You know, that means the person is adding information to their eyes. They are running after information, right? Now we've reached a time where we have ran after information so much where the next thing is after you find truth, what happens then? Let's say you found truth. Let's say the person was like, God, give me truth. And in that moment, suddenly a package was delivered from the sky. And the guy's like, oh my God, God actually gave me truth, you know? And you're holding the truth and you have the truth in your hand and you're like, what now? What now? And the next thing left is after you have found the true world, your true work begins. There is a work that karma can't touch because it's not in the jurisdiction of the dual. For me, being a kid who was around ideology that was authoritarian, I mean, a lot of kids, of course. I mean, the child psychology evolves through retaliation, of course. I'm just saying that if you don't allow yourself to live in a better way, who else can allow you? In the Bhagavad Gita, it says, fill your mind with me, love me, serve me, worship me always. Yo, you know what it is? It's like Krishna's telling Arjuna, like, yo, subscribe to my, Twitter, Facebook, worship me, serve me, love me, It's like, what Krishna is saying by that is, like, the God is trying to tell man, hey, it's important that you are aware there's another tenant in the room. There is a field of intelligent mind while you're being a body here. It's important to establish some sort of relationship with this if you want your great work to activate on this planet. If you want to just hover and roam, if they say the difference, if you just, some people, they're just existing on Earth. They're not living. They haven't looked at life to even live it yet. They're just hovering. They're like, yeah, what's the point of this vast system? Let's just have fun. But what if you could build an advanced civilization while having fun? That means for me, I was like, oh my God, if all people need is fun to do something, it doesn't matter how hard the task is. Just make it fun and people will do it. And that's how hilarious it is. We are incredibly advanced technologies. When I see a human being, that's like literally we can't have even like all our sciences. Imagine all the academia has not been able to create. Man, nothing has. We are so strangely odd and unique that we have evened ourselves out in an ignorance of thinking that we are the small and the big first. You know, religion was, I guess, on one level, you can see it as the first attempt to see the big in the small. Can you imagine being like a farmer back in the day in the 6th century? Like some person, like, you know, let's say you're looking at sheep all day, you know, you know, you're shepherding sheep, and then suddenly someone comes and says, "Yo, yo," and you're like, "Yo, what's happening?" You know, and the person's like, "There's a truth to everything. We were all created by one truth, and this truth is within us and within everything, and everything is the will of this truth, and this life is a simulation, and after it ends, you are resurrected, and then you're judged, and then truth tells you what to do, and it's either heaven or hell, or what, you know, that's what's going on, so we got to be good now." You know, and the shepherd is like, "Holy shit, that's much better than looking at sheep all day." You know, and so there was a shift. There was a shift that something out of, if you saw every human being's life as an ideological, their subjective realms, as a virtual reality upon their reality, it's like that virtual reality by language, philosophy, even religion, we can't ignore it. Religion was like, like, you might not believe it. Religion is kind of strange, but artists are, you don't know how much art was motivated by like religious authorities being like, "Make the best cathedral for me, artist." You know, and the artist was like, "Dude, that's too much work." You know, and they're like, "Okay, tough luck." You know, we're and so the artist had to go draw the most magnificent paintings. It was literally a reason for art to expand. So you can see, good or evil, this world is so interconnected that at the end of the day, we're like, holy shit, we judge the evil person, we're judging a member of our species. We judge the good person, we're judging a member of our species. At the end of it, we're just like a species. But if we choose that 8 billion creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere, as if the clouds part and instead of light coming from outside, light from the planet is going outside. You know, I think we have a karmic debt to pay the universe. And that debt is that the universe has given us light, and now it is our turn. We have to have such an advanced state of communication on this planet that if aliens landed, if robots were walking in the streets, if animals were attached, I don't know, complex robotic technology that they could speak, we should be so advanced in our minds. The human mind should be at such a transcendental position that we create a civilization where all these other humanoid creatures can integrate. We have to start planting seeds that will make science fiction books seem like prophecy. Krishna says, when one's mind dwells on the objects of senses, fondness for them grows on him. From fondness comes desire, and from desire, anger. Yo, I remember reading this. It's written so much more beautifully. This guy's kind of summed it up. This is like a simple translation. But the guy's accurate in regards to the design of the sentence. So there is this thing in the Srimad Bhagavatam where it says, all right, so check it out. You are in attention, right? You open your eyes in the morning. Your senses are objective to you. Even though we give them subjective meaning, even though I'm calling this a tree, an alien, imagine landing on the earth, wouldn't call this a tree. The alien's going to be like, I don't want to call this a tree. And I'll be like, sure, language is malleable, so you can do it. You can call it whatever you like. Do you see? So the subjective layer of life, like the mind's life layered over the body's life. Okay, this isn't on mute, is it? No, it's not. Okay. So it's like the mind's life is layered over the body's life. And pretty much, from a standpoint of wisdom, it's pretty much like, all right, so you open your eyes, you look at objects. The more your attention is on objects, the more you want to relate yourself to an object, so you automatically grow fond of it. When you grow fond of something, you come to desire. Oh, actually, sorry. Oh, yeah. Yeah, sorry, I'm going down the stairs in the wrong way. Um, I'm jumping past stairs. So let me say this again. The attention goes to an object of the senses. Right now, the object of the senses for me is this cup of coffee, okay? I'm just staring at it. So then it says fondness for them grows. That fondness is like when it's like the emotion after you accept something. So that means your eyes open, they see an object. You as you keep looking at the object, you accept the object. That's the fondness. Once you have accepted the fondness, you start to want to have a relationship with the object. You desire it, and after you have desire, because you have a desire for it to be in a certain way, because life changes. If it changes, you get angry. So if I'm like, I want this cup of coffee to, like, I take a sip of hot coffee and I'm like, I want this cup of coffee to be hot always, and then after an hour I'm like drinking this warm coffee and I'm angry. I'm like, I desired this to be hot but it's cold now. It can lead to anger. In the Gita it says, to those who have conquered themselves, the will is a friend, but it is the enemy of those who have not found the self within them. That means I have heard people in some sense feel they are non-dual and they see the true self within everybody, but then at the same time they want to fight the evils of like a patriarchal system, you know. So that's the strange thing where we are noticing, like, what are we doing here as beings? A lot of it is language games. So I would say the complexity of psychological games is just how we have no choice other than to share language. When someone shares language, they have no choice but to share an image, right? So I'm saying you will feel life is a psychological game if you feel you're that kind of piece. If you define yourself as weak, yeah, the whole world is allowed to hit you on the head. You know, if you define yourself as something strong, you realize it's totally fine. Why not? The person can wear a black colored shirt, a person can wear a white colored shirt. Like, my wardrobe is very limited to the yin yang symbol. You know, but Krishna says, but it is the enemy of those who have not found the self within them. Yeah, the self is, when you find it, there's no finder. You actually have found nothing. Like, hear what I'm saying. You have found nothing. And it becomes one of those moments of life where it's like you're standing and a breeze is hitting you and you're looking at the sky and the colors of your world, its spatial dimensions, how the light comes and goes, and in the middle of this you're like, I have to play this game. And it's like this laughter of an inevitability that the soul realizes is it is nature. Krishna in the Gita says, they live in wisdom who see themselves in all and all in them, who have renounced every selfish desire and sense craving tormenting the heart. The ignorant work for their own profit, Arjuna. The wise work for the welfare of the world without thought for themselves. You know why, guys? Because that's the greater game to play. After you profit yourself, what? For how long can you sit on the most comfortable chair? But the Titanic is sinking. You know? Krishna is telling, hey Arjuna, you're on Titanic. Abide by your universal duty. And I never finished it, but those three archetypes were the individual memory, the universal memory, and then a part of you which has never had a history, has never had a memory. It is the unchanging witness. the attributeless, unchanging witness. When you realize your soul is using space as a body before matter, you will laugh at how your moment has been complete before, as if like the word incomplete was actually incomplete, was in the completion. There is no such thing. You're a completed being. This is a perfect universe where imperfection has become a new brush. Krishna says the offering of wisdom is better than any material offering, Arjuna, for the goal of all work is spiritual wisdom. You don't say. Even if you were the most sinful of sinners, Arjuna, you could cross beyond all sin by the raft of Dharma, spiritual wisdom. Those who possess the wisdom have equal regard for all. They see the same self in a spiritual aspirant and an outcast, in an elephant, a cow, and a dog. All the scriptures lead to me. I am their author and their wisdom. Do you know what it is? It's literally like, imagine you thinking of a world and then waiting to see when will your thoughts realize you thought them. When you realize all ontological description is limited to phenomenological observation, phenomenology, existence is its own dimension, is its own voice. That means our knowledge, you might not believe it. It's just after some point the species realized, just like it discovered fire, it discovered an ability to make mouth noises and a phenomena and a subjective symbol the same. That's it. That's knowledge. People are like, oh man, it's so hard to learn. Really? You're designed to learn. That's how we've been surviving, by realizing what's going on. In the Gita it says the immature think that knowledge and action are different, but the wise see them as the same. For the senses wander, and when one lets the mind follow them, it carries wisdom away like a wind-blown ship on the waters. The peace of God, P-E-A-C-E, the peace of God is within them whose mind and soul are in harmony, who are free from desire and wrath, who know their own soul. Krishna says anger leads to bewilderment to loss of memory of true self, and by that intelligence is destroyed. And by that intelligence is destroyed, and with the destruction of intelligence he perishes. That means you pretty much freak out, you do something wrong, you lose the memory of your true nature, you descend into destructive behavior. From the descension into destructive behavior, when you do a bunch of destructive activity repetitively, then you don't feel intelligent to yourself. Then you allow yourself to perish. Then the world's cruel aspects open, and that's the something that advanced civilization needs to create a backup. We should prevent human psychology from finding itself in the gutters of existence. We have to eradicate a potential for a certain suffering. And that's why a new ethos that encourages a global service, a universal service, is the best kind of joy for the individual greed. Krishna says no one who does good work will ever come to a bad end, either here or in the world to come. The meaning of karma is in the intention. The intention behind action is what matters. Those who are motivated only by desire for the fruits of action are miserable, for they are constantly anxious about the results of what they do. Yeah, guys, that's the thing in life. Your karma is like how intensely you're looking at life. If you just simplify your gaze, sometimes I'm like, when something doesn't work, when I have a problem in a certain state of mind, before changing direction, changing course of the ship, I would say I would first change the speed. So that means if you have a problem and you're going at 70% speed, maybe go to like 50% speed and see how the problem's still there. Sometimes it could be that we're rushing for an inner event and that makes us not feel in harmony with the outer event. In the Bhagavad Gita, it says, at the beginning of time, I declare two paths for the pure heart. Jnana Yoga, the contemplative path of spiritual wisdom, and Karma Yoga, the active path of selfless service. So imagine we build a collective system based on selfless service, and we build an individual system based on spiritual wisdom. That means the individual's position is here to contemplate things. The civilization's position is here to become the selfless service of the individual. That means this is the best kind of interaction of people and their governing institution, you can say, where it's as if the the governing power is like in a dialogue, in a healthy dialogue with the people, because you see, it's all about information, right? Now the issue is people. I feel that literally, what do you do when you have a fight with a friend? You wait until tomorrow to discuss things again. So if the citizens of any nation have this endless effort, you know, people have a selfless service, and the governing powers updates its program, becomes super, like right now nations, for me, they're not understanding the value of higher quality living, you know. That means if there was a law that you could become the leader of a nation but you had to live poor, imagine only poor, like a very poor person could only become the president of a nation. That means that, imagine there was a law that, for example, people who, here's the thing, because the way I've seen the discussions, I mean, I don't want to get too into this idea, but it's like, when somebody has something, they don't worry about it for others. But when you don't have something, then it's much easier for you to want equality for everything, you know? So people who have less are paying more attention to what's important to have, right? But people who have more can't pay that much attention because they don't know what's less. They don't know what not the absence of their psychology would be like if the conditional limits of their environment were different. So that's why I'm saying, but of course, in the future, I think AI, like after 2000, what is it? Ray Kurzweil says 45, but it was first suggested 50. Like after the technological singularity, pretty much governments are going to be replaced with AI making next level calculations that were way better than human leadership, I think. I think before technology right now, human beings like can really participate, you know? It's cool. It's like back in the day there were kings and queens, and now it's like that archetype is descending, and now it's like politicians. Then this archetype will descend, and it's going to move into another narrative for the future generations. You know, what if we had this mentality? Everybody is a leader of their nation, even a young child. Imagine the young child is born and goes to its parents. It's like, who's the leader of the nation? And the parents are like, you, my dear. And then it's like, me, only me. And then the parents are like, no, your father is a leader of the nation. Your sister is a leader of the nation. Your neighbor is a leader of the nation. We're just a political system that has understood that the involvement of human engagement with its own house is important, with its own community is important. Because what is the point of having this 5 billion year old evolutionary mind but not using it to communicate? I'm like, oh my God, did God give man a mouth, poetically, like let's entertain the Abrahamic lens. Did the Creator give man a voice so he could complain? Is that the purpose, the teleology of why we have mouths, evolutionary reason? To just complain, oh God, it's not perfect. Oh man, we need something else. We need something else. Everybody wants something else. Nobody is looking at actually what else could be. We have hope, but we don't have actually a care to be our hope, to design our hope. Now more than ever, it's an era where we have to design hope, literally plant it like seeds. Be like, yeah, we used to be animal. For me, I'm like trying to just pull a curtain for the future generations so they don't see how unnecessarily inefficient a lot of history has been behaviorally between human value. Like the world wars, it led to 85 million people or something dying. I was like, what the fuck? That's literally, do you know what that is? That is 85 million people who could have potentially been Albert Einsteins. They could have been like, uh, they could have been philosophers, poets, artists, chefs, blacksmiths, innovators, anything. Just 85 million people dying is a suggestion of incredible human stupidity. Like, yeah, our species is doing some pretty stupid things right now, like it's embarrassing. That's why I'm like, some people are like, yeah man, let's have a world where people like the UFO thing is happening, let's see aliens here. And I'm like, I'd be embarrassed if an alien civilization landed on Earth right now to make contact. I would be embarrassed of what we have here. I would just be like, no, I don't want to see the aliens, because it's here's the thing. The only reason there is shame is because aliens could come land on Earth, and we're like, what are the first words aliens made, to humans? And the aliens just said, shame, shame, shame. And we're like, no way, the aliens have seen Game of Thrones. And the aliens are saying shame because we could be so grand, but we're living in inferior ways. In the Gita, it says at the beginning of, oh no, I read that. The senses are higher than the body, the mind higher than the senses. Above the mind is the intellect, and above the intellect is the Atman. Thus, knowing that which is supreme, let the Atman rule the ego. Use your mighty arms to slay the fierce enemy that is selfish desire. So this is the edge, ladies and gentlemen. That you will realize that it is the inconceivable moving the conceivable. That we started off as known objects, wondering about unknown subjective potentials, ending up realizing we are an unknown experience of a mind within a body. It says free from anger and selfish desire, unified in mind. Those who follow the path of yoga and realize the self are established forever in that supreme state. You know what that means? That means like just like hockey, like when you learn how to play it, it's accessible to you. When you realize there is a way that the mind can be where it doesn't generate resistance for itself, then you will wonder about what is the administration of all the ideas that are being in the moment. Right now, as I'm speaking to you, it's like if I was to ask the question from myself, what is administering the movement of my voice, everything I'm telling to you, it has to do with rhythm. It has to do that our whole moment, our mind is our greater body. And what is moving the greater body is a unification, which is the other side of the coin of oneness, where it's invisible. So imagine there's a visible unity and an invisible unity. So pretty much here it's saying let the invisible unity administer the individualism in the visible unity. Let the Atman move the intellect, let the intellect move the mind, and let the mind move the senses, and as the senses move the body, the great work has been done. You have been excellent before you were born. It's like an unborn excellence, you can attain that here. Earth is a cool place. In the Gita it says, reshape yourself through the power of your will. Never let yourself be degraded by self-will. The will is the only friend of the self, and the will is the only enemy of the self. That means your attention is like driving the vehicle of your psychology. So you can say even the notion of the simplicity of complex psychological games is that in the most complex psychological game, it's simply existent. You are simply moving the complex. And sometimes in moments where it's simple for you, I encourage complexity. That means if I'm in a room and a bunch of people are sitting silent, but when I was young, I would stay silent. I would be like, yeah, let's play the statue game, you know? Everybody just, silent. But then I realized, no, no, no. When the moment is simple and you get bored of the simple, it's like there is a sincere complexity that you can entertain. And when the moment is complex and it's boring, you can just, you'll notice it in my talks. I become super silly, usually. When it's like I've seen enough of the complexity and I want to pilot through a simpler narrative, you know. Don't think like I'm going every day being like, yo, Atman every day, everywhere. Once you know how to do something, then you don't have to believe or disbelieve it. It becomes second nature. So it's the same thing. This is one of those experiential rhythmic things that once you find your own rhythm by no longer banishing your inner child from who you are now, it becomes like you might not believe it. You have to accept who you will be before you can be it. Consciously, at least. In the Gita, it says, it is better to live your own destiny imperfectly than to live an imitation of somebody else's life with perfection. Bullseye, you know. A gift is pure when it is given from the heart to the right person at the right time and at the right place, and when we expect nothing in return. Yeah. Pretty much it's energy. What can energy expect? It's just energy. Like, and if we really took ourselves as if we really were materialists, there would be no reason to have egos. The ego would be the most unreasonable thing that's happening for a material phenomenon. Like, it doesn't make sense why it should happen, why it should be like that. Even the hard problem of consciousness. Why are we aware of conscious of pain, but not conscious of a shitload of other processes going on in the body? So like that's what I'm saying. There's something unique about the administration of what has been authorized existentially for the eyes of experience to feel, to be. No longer sweeping ideological chimneys. but piloting beyond the event horizon of the darkest mishaps of the civilization. In the Gita, it says, a gift is pure when it is given. Oh, no, I read that, sorry. The power of God is with you at all times, though through the activities of mind, senses, breathing, and emotions, and is constantly doing all the work using you as a mere instrument. You don't say. The embodied soul is eternal in existence, indestructible and infinite. Only the material body is factually perishable. The wise grieve neither for the living nor for the dead. There was never a time when you and I and all the kings gathered here, have not existed, and nor will there be a time when we will cease to exist. As if we are an eternal event. We're just temporarily freaking out. Materially, As in the Gita it says, as the soul experiences in this body childhood, youth, and old age, so also it acquires another body. The sage in this is not deluded. As you put on fresh new clothes and take off those you've worn, you'll replace your body with a fresh one, newly born. Pretty much, it's not that you refresh your body, it's just that we're using death as a linguistic reference to something that from the beginning has been changing, uh, endlessly breaking and building itself. Do you know? We are like in an eternal event. That's how life feels. It's an eternal event, but it's a temporary existence in this form. It doesn't mean the eternal event stops. Krishna says, never the spirit was born. The spirit shall cease to be never. Never was time, it was not. End and beginning are dreams. Birthless and deathless and changeless remaineth the spirit forever. Death hath not touched, oh my God. Death, oh my God. Okay, death has not touched it at all. Dead though the house of it seems. Death is literally like a mirage in a desert, maybe, from this view. Every creature in the universe is subject to rebirth, Arjuna, except the one who's united with me. What he means is the being who has realized himself beyond the dualistic framework doesn't need to play dualistic games. It doesn't mean that incarnation stops. It doesn't mean even God doesn't have an incarnation. Technically, if you look at it, God has incarnated to talk to Arjuna. So incarnation is not a problem. It's just a problem because we identify with it. You know? So reincarnation isn't a big deal, and I haven't changed the script. Sorry guys, out of curiosity, how long was it on mute? Guys, keep it in mind, I'm just reading quotes from this ancient book. Some people in the chat section seem a bit maybe lost about what I'm talking about here. These quotes are from this. Um, I don't know how long it was on mute, guys. Sorry, but I was just reading on. So I'm just gonna read this quote just to make sure it's been shared. So there's a section of the Bhagavad Gita where after saying the idea of reincarnation, it's kind of like explaining it, right? So it says the embodied soul is eternal in existence and it's indestructible and infinite. Only the material body is factually perishable. The wise grieve neither for the living nor for the dead. There was never a time when you and I and all the kings gathered here have not existed, and nor will there be a time when we will cease to exist. As the soul experiences in this body childhood, youth, and old age, so also it acquires another body. The sage in this is not deluded. As you put on fresh new clothes and take off those you've worn, you'll replace your body with a fresh one newly born. Never the spirit was born, the spirit shall cease to be never. Never was time, it was not. End and beginning are dreams. Birthless and deathless and changeless remaineth the spirit forever. Death hath not touched it at all. Dead though the house of it seems. Every creature in the universe is subject to rebirth, Arjuna, except the one who is united with me. And so, guys, this is the end of the quote tunnel, but I'm going to say a comment. You see, when Krishna says, he says, if you are aware of the field of intelligence, you technically, rebirth is not a problem. It just becomes an activity. It's just like, it becomes something the world is doing that you're witnessing, not something that you are doing. You know, that's the whole point where he says, except the one who is united with me. So that's kind of saying the universe is alive. Those who communicate with it, they don't identify with the content in the moment, but as the whole moment. And this book was written when? Like such a long time ago that me sharing it now, honestly, I don't feel anybody can ever understand these texts. But it's just that sometimes you have to live with the spirit of how the energy to read it comes, you know, guys? So anyways, we can move past this quote tunnel. Okay, everybody's like, it wasn't on mute. Okay, so I just repeated myself. That's totally fine, you know. Um, but guys, you don't know. I've had talks where I've like literally explained something for 30 minutes and then I realized, oh my God, I didn't press the record button. And then I've just laughed and I pressed the record again and repeated the whole thing. It's been like, it's like a, you know, sometimes you got to carry the weight. But so anyways, guys, what I'm trying to share here with the Bhagavad Gita is that if we see the world divided between an axis of simplicity and complexity, okay, and the psyche entertaining this, like literally any game you play, there's chaos and order, simplicity, complexity. So we can say that when you're aware of the simple and complex, you are a player in the game. So the simplicity of complex psychological games, the complexity of the psychological game is the inner realm expressing in the outer realms. The simplicity is how the outer realms is limiting the inner realms expression. So we have to somehow get our species, as Terence McKenna so points out, to notice novelty. That the universe is a novelty engine, as the scholar Terence McKenna says. You know, that means it's like accelerating towards a crystallization of form towards the new. You know what it is? It seems like the whole cosmos is a mind and it's changing its mind. And we are changing in accordance to how the mind is changed. Because think about it, like I think of a thought and then I remember that inner image. When I remember that inner image, I could totally forget about it and talk about something else, but I have that inner image existing somewhere. So let us say that there is no such thing as destruction. Can you imagine a world where it's just emptiness and creation? Things are endlessly being created. They're not being destroyed. That means, imagine, just like Heraclitus says, no man steps in the same river twice, and it is not the same man, it is not the same river. What he means, let's say that no world expands twice, and it is not the same world, and it is not the same expansion. Do you know that means the world is changing its mind while we in it are changing a bit slower, defining the context and then changing our minds. So that's what I would say. We are human beings and we play games. And these games have accesses, have concepts, and pretty much all of knowledge arises in the story format to be remembered. Because it's a character in a story, it's again the whole concept, context, narrative. I personally feel some actors who, for example, Marlon Brando, who the actor of The Godfather, like when I believe Coppola took this, maybe it was somebody else, but they took a script for him, do you know? And when he read The Godfather, he was such a method actor, Marlon Brando, that he put like a tissue underneath his lip, and he went and got shoe polish, and he started coloring his hair, and he started to begin creating the character of The Godfather in front of the mirror for himself. Do you know? Like that was a level of mind that had an ability to notice itself empty to start again. Do you know? That means everybody is intelligent if they advance something. It's just that that intelligence has to be there has to also be the responsibility of translation of action, you know? It's about getting human beings to care for the better. When they care for the better, they have to create an archetypal role. Do you know? You see this in a lot of like Japanese narratives where the main character is like loses something at the beginning of its life. You know, loses something important to it. When it loses something important, it sees the main character sees how cruel life is and eventually steps beyond their limitation and towards their limitless power. You know? We have to build the space of, we have to design our freedom, then implement it. We have to be freer in our inner realms than the outer realms, or we will be too defined by the outer realms to even see ourselves differently. And life is, what can I say? An object evolved to a subject to itself that is now questioning how it's experiencing its own existence, to realize that the questioner and the question are being the same moment, regardless of how classified ideologically the moment can be. That means nature was free. It was man who shackled himself to ideas that never needed to be, necessarily there. Like sometimes a lot of people in this world, like, do you know how many, like, as a just pretty much being a human in this place, don't forget, it's a concrete jungle, right? That means it's like a lot of people can say a lot of things about the person. The person's just like, you only get angry for those you really care, you know? That means there is this thing that somebody who doesn't know you, their words are like pretty much empty to me, you know? When, like if it was my, like, I have a twin brother, if it was my twin brother, like, saying something to me, then because I care, because I'm like, okay, why is that mode there, then I would speak. But really, that's the thing about life. It's like the true levels of intelligence activate with trust in the moment. If there isn't trust, you just hide. You got to trust this world to live in it. But you don't need to trust it if you just want to exist. If you just want to exist, you can just hover. You can become a nihilist or a solipsist and just think it's only your inner realms, or think only it's your outer realms, and just just live void of meaning. Or you can realize that the truth is that now there is something alive to live its meaning, to generate its meaning. What if truth was something that was people went to find it, but it was something that had to be lived? What if it's an experience where that is the ultimate, not an idea? That's the simplicity, a simple experience that surpasses the most complex ideology. Of course, every being deserves respect, but when there is rudeness, it's literally like an alien coming to humans and being like, who are you, humans? And we'd be like, hey, buddy, it's like so it's like dismissive, ignorant dismissal needs to be responded to, but um, not like I'm not saying like when somebody disagrees with you, like entertain a Genghis Khan archetype. You know what I mean? Like I'm saying like Genghis Khan was so messed up. This guy was like when he would invade kingdoms, he would say, "I'm the wrath of God." I'm like, holy shit, dude! It's like he's definitely someone who's gonna experience some sort of wrath. You can't break things without breaking yourself in the process. That's the nature of reality. And it's the same thing. You can't fix something without fixing yourself in the process. It's like literally cause and effect, pretty much. You're causing your future. You're literally how you live now is designing how your future self is going to remember you so far. That's why honor is sometimes you're honoring yourself, not just because who you are now, because who you could be. You also need to, as a human being, honor your potential, or you won't care for your own skill. People change, guys. When you realize people change, nobody is ever the same. So technically, judging people is a waste of time, honestly. But judging events, like I gave a talk on this yesterday, like from like talk focusing on the problem starting from the people or from the event or from the idea. Literally, those are the three things people can criticize. I don't know what else can they criticize. You either criticize the ideas of a person, the actions of a person, the event, or you criticize their personality. What else can you criticize in this world? And if the person, like, if we realize our inner realms are different, literally, like, people have been letting themselves be disturbed. I remember when I was in the UK, it was hilarious. They had a lot of people would say this term, like, I can't be bothered, they would say. Like, I can't be bothered. Like, literally, like, some sort of as if, like, people are kings and queens to themselves. It's like, I can't be bothered, man, you know? And I was like, that's pretty cool, you know? That sometimes the person realizes that there's some things that you can decide too. Usually people are waiting for events to take place outside and then they engage. But when you realize you can also pilot, then life gets a totally different excitement. Then it's like simplicity and complexity become like airplane wings. Then your mind goes into moments and then watches the moment and it has an inner landscape to entertain. you know you start actually caring about how you see the world, and then the mirror, the smudges in the mirror fade. So anyways, guys, thanks for listening. For anybody who, my whole thing is I'm trying to, before 2045, try to encourage people to communicate in more advanced ways. So the School of Athens Discord server link is there. Don't be shy. We're all live once. People can come join that and join the discussion. I'm going to be there probably for like maybe 10 minutes. Anyways, thanks for listening, guys. And one last thing I feel I need to say. I'm going to share one last story before I end off, actually. There's the Zen master. It's at night. His house is like the only house closest to the peak of a mountain, you know. And he comes in and he sees there's a thief, this young kid who's like his siblings were starving or something. This young kid has come to steal, and this young kid is in his house, but because he's such a minimalistic Zen master, you know, he has nothing in the house, right? And there's maybe like a bowl or something, and then there's like the guy has clothes, you know. And so the guy takes off, like he has this rope, like he gives this rope to this kid, and the thief is like caught in that, in the middle of the house. Imagine you come to your house and you see there's a thief there. The thief is scared, you know, shocked too, you know. And so this young kid's looking there, and this Zen master, he realizes what's going on, and he just takes his like coat or something, you know. I don't know, not coat's probably not the right word, but whatever. Like he takes his robe or whatever, like you know, monk clothing or whatever. He gives it to the kid. He's like, "Go sell this, and you'll make some money or something," you know. And the kid's shocked. He's like, "Holy shit! I came to rob this guy. This guy's so foolish. He's giving me his clothing and he's telling me to go," you know. And the kid takes the clothing. He's like, "Okay, thanks." He takes the clothing and runs. The kid runs. And the guy's just there laughing. He's just like this kind of strange, kind of like as if the guy's not upset by what he's done, you know, the Zen master. And the kid runs. The kid runs, you know. And I got to create two crossroads for the stories. I'm going to tell you what happens, what insight the kid gets, the moral of the story from the kid's side, and the moral of the story from the Zen master side. The kid is running with the bowl or whatever, like whatever he's gotten from the Zen master, and he's running. And in the middle of it, he's like, "What the fuck?" He suddenly stops, and he's like, "Wait a minute. How? What did just like? What happened? How could this guy give me the last thing he owned?" The kid's just thinking for himself. And he runs back and he goes and sells the thing or whatever, and he lives. But throughout the years, let's say, that are going by, the kid's thinking, what did that guy have? Like, what treasure did that guy have that he could let go of the material treasure that easily? Like, what did that person know? You know? And now the Zen Master side. The Zen Master, he gives the thing to the kid. The kid runs out. He's laughing. And there's this silent moment where he just looks at his empty house. You know, he's like, "What is this? This is like part of the land now." He goes out, and he suddenly sits down just there, you know, completely without anything in nature. And he looks at a dewdrop of grass, and in the dewdrop he sees a moon. He sees the glow of the moon. And he's just there, and he's like, "Wow, what a beautiful moon." And that's the end of the Zen story, guys. That was life. That in the middle of this performance, you are seeing the beautiful moon. Yeah, all right. And then afterwards, you stretch, and then you go to a Discord server after seeing a beautiful moon. You know. So, anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I hope this episode was helpful. Much blessings and namaste.